So starting in alphabetical order with Adelaide, in James Peatling, Isaac Cumming, and Alex Neil-Bullen. Out Elliot Himmelberg. And to my understanding, they also hold pick 4 in the draft currently.
Yep.
Which is a pretty good pick.
Not too much going on. I think that this won't affect them too much. I think pick 4 is the number one thing.
Yeah. I think Neil-Bullen's a really nice addition because they get killed by midfielders like Bontempelli, Neil, Petrarca. He can help, I guess, be that tagger who just laments their influence, I suppose. Yeah. Now, what grade are you going to be giving them?
Probably like... I reckon they're in... Look, I don't think they're playing finals next year. I think they're a few years away from that.
I think they need to play finals next year. I don't think they will, but I think they need to.
Yeah.
If they don't, Nix will get sacked. Guarantee you. Yeah. So, I'm going to give them a B-. Big year for them next year. Big year. Now the reigning premiers, Brisbane.
No one in.
And they got rid of Harry Sharp. So, we can't really say too much about this, can we?
I don't think they had a pick in top 20 either.
I'd actually barely heard of Harry Sharp before this trade came through.
They've done nothing, and they don't have anyone in the draft, so...
Now they've got Levi Ashcroft. That's the main thing.
Yeah,
they'll get picks for Sharp that will, help them get Ashcroft.
But other than that, that's the only thing that's going to affect them. Ashcroft. That's it.
Yeah. So what's your grade for them?
Well, down a D or something. Actually, maybe a C because of Ashcroft. But other than that,
I think it'd have to be D+ for me, just because they didn't do anything terrible, but they weren't great either.
Apparently, Ashcroft's good, but they don't have anyone.
Good. He's a generational player, mate. He's touted to go number 1. Now, the Carlton Footy Club.
Nick Haynes. That might help Backman. They're underrated.
And then they got rid of the 2 Matts, Owies and Kennedy.
Yeah.
Those were the 2 players Blues fans they just did not want to let go of.
No.
They were saying, do everything in your path to keep. And, well, they didn't. I guess it's kind of fair that they got rid of Owies. Plus, they got pick 3 for him, which is... something Carlton fans should be very happy about.
Pick 3 for Carlton is the main thing. I think that pick 3 will help them.
That is true, yep. But that's 30-odd goals missing from next year. Because Matt always kicked 33 goals and was easily their best small forward. But I also think that their small forward line is, while it is very thick, it's not very good. They've got so many small forwards. They've got Motlop, Fantasia. They had Jack Martin before they delisted him, and they obviously had Owies. There's probably more that I'm forgetting. They needed to slim down on it, even if it was getting rid of the best one. And who knows, maybe it can allow Jesse Motlop or someone like that to flourish next year.
All the midfielders are high in the draft, but Carlton have to get a small forward, you think, from the draft.
Yeah.
Because Matt always going out, they're relying on their 2 tools a lot. So.
I suppose so. What would your grade for Carlton be?
C, maybe, at best. I mean, the pick again is the main thing. They don't have much going on.
That is true. It's a very good draft. They should be able to select Finn Sullivan with that pick, or Finn O'Sullivan, or whatever his name is.
Yeah, but they need a forward as well. They've got plenty of midfielders.
Yeah.
They do lose Matty Kennedy, but that won't matter as much, I think.
I'm going to give Carlton a B, I think, just a solid B, because they did bring in Nick Haynes and pick 3.
Yeah, that's decent. Collingwood, big with Dan Houston, and Harry Perryman coming in.
But they also got rid of Josh Noble and Joe Richards. Now, a lot of Collingwood fans are almost more upset about Richards than Noble, because Richards is younger, I suppose, and he's also shown a lot. But Johnny Noble, or Josh rather, he's a very good player. I think he's supremely underrated, actually. I have no clue what McRae was thinking dropping him last year. I think he well and truly should have played in that grand final.
I think that, to be honest, grading-wise, Houston's big, but they don't have a good pick in the draft. They're going to get no one from the draft, so they're dishing out a young player and they're not getting any young players in. So people are saying Collingwood are old, and that might prove to be true.
Yeah, and Perryman on a 6-year deal.
Yeah.
He's a fine player, don't get me wrong. But Harry Perryman is not a 6-year deal sort of player.
Yeah, it's a risk.
It is a big risk. I'm going to give them I reckon I'm going to give them an A-, which might be a little bit of a generous grade, considering they did get rid of Noble, who's normally a first-team player, and Richards, who's showing a lot of promising signs. But I think Houston can really help them.
I reckon
that's the main thing.
It's C or C minus for me. Houston's a very good kick. He's a very good player, but to be honest, you have to have a good draft pick along with that as well. You're losing 2 players,
especially with this draft.
Yeah.
Like it's a very good draft.
No major draft picks for them is not going to help them.
Yeah.
So they're just.
And now we've got God spare us, the Essendon Football Club. So they didn't bring anyone in, but they did manage to get rid of Jake Stringer, who was just about their top goal scorer.
Yeah, that's going to hurt. He either turns up or he doesn't. It kind of evens out along the season.
Stringer, when he is hot, he is hot. When he's cold, he's ice cold. Like, he just goes missing far too often. During the pre-season, he'll come back overweight, out of shape. GWS gave him the 2-year deal.
Yeah.
Which is what Essendon was avoiding to do. Like, I really like the way they played that situation with Stringer, actually. It was a bit hard for him, I suppose. Being shown the door after you kick 40 goals in a season isn't exactly great. But I think they handled it really well. They didn't want to give him anything other than that 1-year deal if they were to keep him. And GWS are going to find out for themselves why they gave him up.
Yeah, Essendon have no one basically in the draft again. No big top 20, nothing.
They want Kako. That's the main thing. Yeah. They got rid of Stringer and they got rid of Pick 9, which is a little bit...
He's going to go before they can get him, isn't he?
No, he'll go top 10, I think.
Yeah.
And they changed the rules this year, so...
Do you ever pick in top 10?
We used to. We traded it away for the points. Because the idea, to my understanding, Rose's idea was that even if we did keep pick 9, that pick would be swallowed and wasted by a bid for Kako.
Yeah.
So we gave that up. We take Kako in the top 10. And he also believes that it's a very deep draft. So there's a lot of talent laid in it, which has been the case with Essendon. They have found some real diamonds in the rough, I feel.
You don't have any in top 24, no picks?
We've got 28, which is just outside of it.
Kako's going to go before that.
Yeah, he'll go like top 10.
Yeah, so you're not getting him, and that's going to hurt.
No, we would get him. They changed the rules, so we can get him. Yeah. We will get him. We have the picks. We can get him. He wants to go to Essendon. It'll happen.
But if someone else picks him up before,
I'll be filthy if that happens.
He's good enough to go before, I reckon.
I'll be absolutely filthy if that happens.
He would fit Carlton, I reckon.
That is true. Made a good small forward.
Is he good enough to go pick 3?
He's not a podium player. I don't think.
I don't think.
I think he'd be top 10 later in the top 10. So for the Bombers, I reckon a C minus.
You D or C minus, yeah.
Yeah, just because they didn't do much.
No picks.
They're normally
they're getting virtually no one in, really. No stars.
They're normally. It feels a little bit eerie, I guess, this trade period because they're normally so busy. Like last season, they were in the thick of it.
Yeah. So now we move to
the Dockers.
Shea Bolton in, no one going out. They're a strong team. They've got a lot of good young players.
It's a scary forward line.
Yeah.
Bolton paired up with Tracy, Amos, Mickey Walters, who's getting a bit old, and then Michael Frederick as well. That is a very good forward line.
Pick 14 as well. So
yeah,
going to get another good young player as well.
They're going to be a very good team next year.
And Young's good as well.
That midfield is good as well. Yeah. And then they got arguably the best ruck duo in the league, in my opinion. Luke Darcy,
Pierce,
Sean Darcy, and Luke Jackson.
Yeah, Pierce in the back line. They're all round good. They've got to play finals.
They have to.
We all agree on that.
I don't just think finals. I think top 4.
Yeah, I reckon.
I think they've set themselves up for top 4.
Third, somewhere around there. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're good enough. Very, very unlucky not to play finals.
Okay, so the retirement home, Geelong. They brought in Bailey Smith.
Yep.
They didn't do too much other than that.
It's a big win, though. He's been out for a while, but he's a good player.
Smith is a very good player. I think Dogs drove a very hard bargain for him. Probably a little bit too hard. But it doesn't matter in the end. They got him. And he should be a first-team player. Like, if he's fit, Bailey Smith is in every club's best 23.
Yep.
They should get a few more memberships from teenage girls as well, who, follow his Insta and have posters of him on their walls.
I don't think they'd gone for Geelong, though, having all the home games in
Geelong. Well, they get wins. That's the thing.
Geelong are always good, and we all know that. They've been good for...
They'll never not be good.
25 years straight.
Even their questionable decisions have paid off. I reckon I'm going to say a B, just a solid B right now.
Yeah.
But knowing Geelong, they're going to prove me wrong next year and it's going to be an A+.
We always downgrade them.
Yeah. No one ever rates them, and then they
always
just
play
surprise
premium.
everyone.
Always play a premium, like every second year or
Just
something.
lock it in. Like, they'll play, I'd say, about 12 games at GMHBA a year.
Yeah.
They'd win 11 of those, and then they'd pile up wins at pretty much... they'll just get other wins elsewhere, you know?
Yeah, so now with the grading, I'd say, probably B. Gold Coast now.
I'd probably say B as well.
Big trade period.
Yeah.
Massive.
Well, I mean, it normally is a big trade period for the Suns, but normally for the opposite reason.
Yeah.
They always seem to have players leaving. Big names as well. So they brought in John Noble and Dan Rioli. Why do I keep calling him John? It's Josh. And then they also brought in Elliot Himmelberg. So that's a very good half-back line. You got Rioli and Noble.
Lukosius is a big loss, though. He's a good player.
He's pretty unreliable, though.
But he plays well. And
losing Rory Atkins as well.
Yeah.
He's one of those Gold Coast players who I just forget exists sometimes, Atkins. Like, it feels like he's been around forever. Like, I think he was in the inaugural team, correct me if I'm wrong, but it just feels like he's been around forever, done nothing with himself, and then I'll randomly just remember him when, something happens or when they play a game.
Yeah,
Probably when they play Essendon and he has a best-on-ground performance.
They're changing their tactics. They used to go for draft picks. Now they're moving to experienced players and trying to build the...
Well, they do have Leo Lombard waiting for them in the draft, who will be a very good prospect for them.
Yeah.
So, I think they need to focus on that a little bit. But, it was a very good trade period. But we'll find out in due course if it was or not.
So, I'd say B, maybe.
I think a B is fair as well.
Yeah.
I think they need to play finals next year.
No.
I've said that about a lot of teams.
They're not good enough, I don't think.
Will they ever be good enough, though? That's the question.
I think.
Gold Coast teams have a record of being pretty, interesting. We have the Gold Coast Titans in the NRL.
It's going to be 5 or more years before they play finals.
I'd say 5 or more decades at this stage.
A lot of people say that. So now moving on.
The other expansion club, the Giants.
GWS. Jake Stringer.
They gave him the 2-year deal, so that was a pretty monumental mistake.
He might kick 40 goals or something again.
You never know what you'll get, though.
Yeah.
Probably because it's the 2-year deal.
And
He'll do nothing.
Hogan as well.
Hear me out. He'll do nothing this year, and then when his contract's up next year, he'll lock in and he'll kick 50 goals and be an All-Australian.
Their forward line's dangerous, because Hogan kicks 3 or 4 every game, and then Stringer could kick 5, whatever.
And then they also got Cadman waiting in there, who's just kind of...
Yeah.
For a number 1 pick, he's a bit irrelevant.
But he's still playing alright.
They've got other good players in there as well. I just can't remember their names. Riccardi, he's pretty good. Their captain, Toby Green. Bedford's a pretty good player. But they've lost a lot of experience, haven't they? They've lost Peatling, Perryman, Haynes, Cumming. They've lost a lot of just solid role players.
Yep.
So I think they're going to have a good draft as well. Maybe even snap up some delisted players.
They do have pick 14 or 15 and 16. So they can get a couple decent, and they've got 21 as well. The higher up, so
they could get something good.
Not extremely good, but
no, but there are going to be bargain players in the draft. That's the thing.
Yeah.
A lot of list managers are thinking that.
There's a lot of media around nowadays.
So I'm going to give them, just because of the experience they've lost, I'm going to give them a D.
Yeah, they kind of lost a bit of their base. The players that underrated that do their job every game.
Yep.
So it's going to hurt.
Now, Hawkball, the Hawks. They had a big trade period, didn't they?
Yeah.
I think Cal Toomey said it. They've become the destination club of the league.
They've lost.
Everyone wants to go there.
No one.
Everyone wants to wear poo and wee colours now.
Yeah, everyone. Well, they've gained Josh Battle, who's, a good player.
He had a really good year too.
And Barras, he can play well as well.
He's just more unreliable, I'd say.
Premiership player, Barras. And Hawthorn, I don't believe, have a major draft pick. So they're going to rely more on the 2 players coming in. But they've got a decent lineup anyway.
Yeah, the great thing about Hawthorn's squad is that they're young as well. Yeah. So they don't need to really hit the draft either. Yeah. This is a very good draft as well, but they are less reliant on that draft, I guess.
I'd say maybe a B or C.
I'd probably say D as well.
Yeah. Not bad. They haven't lost anyone, so there's nothing to really worry about. Now Melbourne.
They brought in Tom Campbell.
Yeah.
So he's now at his his fourth club, I think. He's only played 58 games. Now, I've got a real soft spot for a journeyman, so hope it works out for him, but he's in the same lineup as Max Gawn, so I doubt it will. Then they brought in Harry Sharp from the Brizzy Lions. Don't know if he'll get a game, especially when they have Trent Rivers on the wing, and that's his, well-suited position.
Remember that Melbourne also pick 5 and pick 9, so that's big. That's 2 out of the top 10.
Yeah.
So that's 2 big players they can be bringing in.
Yeah,
that's going to help them a lot.
Yeah. I'm just more concerned about their culture. They clearly have talent.
Yeah.
I'm just worried whether they have the culture to... I don't really know how to describe it, but to facilitate this talent, I guess.
Yeah.
And to retain it as well.
They're going to lose players.
I don't know if Petrarca's still going to be around in 5 years' time.
That's the thing, is he's probably going to go. Oliver, they're saying, might go as well, so...
Yeah. They want him gone.
Yeah.
They literally want Clayton Oliver gone.
I'd say...
He's one of their best players. They want him gone.
I'd say maybe a B+, because 2 good draft picks, and they're not losing that much.
They've also got depth in case Max Gawn gets injured.
It's not a bad draft, but they've got problems at the club.
Yeah.
It's going to affect that, I reckon. Moving on, North Melbourne.
I'm going to say probably a safe for Melbourne.
Yeah, North Melbourne, no one out for them.
Finally, North Melbourne can bring some players into their club. I swear, every player who and their pet cat who's requested a trade to a Melbourne club, they just forget North.
Yeah.
Because it's not really...
No one wants to go there.
Yeah, no one wants to go there. Who wants to play in front of 20,000 people on a Sunday afternoon?
At Marvel.
At Marvel, yes. And North Melbourne, the area itself, I suppose, isn't exactly an attractive one for a young, up-and-coming footballer in their 20s.
Interesting. I think Luke Parker's gone there for money, because he's not
probably,
from Sydney.
And he was also, if you remember, earlier in the year, he wasn't getting games. Like, he was playing
player. I reckon out of all of them,
just playing in the VFL.
Caleb Daniels a big one, I reckon.
Darling's a pretty good acquisition.
He's older.
Forward depth.
He's
but he can come in and he can play a role. He
can help Lucky.
Yeah. He can come and play a role, though, because they've been playing Zerha as that second forward.
Yeah,
that's not what he's well suited for. I feel like he's more of a really, really good third.
Yeah, he's more of a mid-forward, like a centre-half forward.
Yeah, like a Jake Stringer.
Yeah.
And they didn't actually lose anyone either. And they also brought in... I actually think this could be a really good acquisition. Jacob Constanti.
Yeah.
So he hasn't played a game for Sydney, right? But his numbers in the VFL have been really good. And he was also a top 20 pick a few years ago. So I feel like, if he's in, obviously, a North Melbourne team that's not as competitive, he can maybe get some game day spots, potentially... cause a scene, become, a really, really solid player.
I think that North Melbourne overlook backline. Like, they never really looked for backline talent that much. And they
don't have a good backline either.
And they're not looking to improve it either, which is a bit worrying.
Yeah, I know. They should have made a play for Barras. It's not like he was going to go there, but they should have at least tried.
They had picked 2. Being realistic, they could take another midfielder like they have the past.
I could see them... Yeah, they need to take a backman. I'd agree with that.
But they have to take a backman. They need a backman.
It's necessary.
Everyone's attracted to midfielders, but that's 1 out of 3 of the major roles. You've got to look after the backline.
They've got... Well, they have Sheasel off half-back. Would you count that?
A big back.
But he goes into the midfield, so he's not even really a defender.
They've had players kicking big bags against them. And Brisbane scored, 150 points earlier this year against them.
They play players back into form.
It's not good enough.
I swear, some of these teams...
Yeah.
I'd even put Essendon in this bracket as well. Players who are in shit form, they just play themselves back into it against that club.
Yeah.
Like, we saw Peter Wright do it this year. There's probably a lot of other examples I've forgotten. But, I reckon for the Kangas,
overall,
just because...
B+ or A.
Just because they finally just brought some players in, I'm going to give them an A.
Pick 2 as well, same.
Yeah. This should get them out of bottom 2.
They can't pick another midfielder. They have to pick a backman.
This should get them out of the bottom 2 for next year.
Yeah. Next up is Port Adelaide. So, few ins
Bear.
for them and a big out as well. So
Yeah, Houston's a massive loss.
Yeah.
They should probably... I know they're not going to find a ready-made... It's very rare to find a ready-made half-backman because they're such, I guess, not even erratic players, but they... All the X-Factor players take a while to develop, and half-backs are no different. I can't think of any half-backman in the last 10 years who's been ready-made, other than Sheasel, perhaps. But even then, he was still a bit raw in his first season. But they might have to, I guess, try cover for that loss in the draft a little bit. Or maybe even in the pre-season draft. Or maybe, switch roles. Maybe a Jace Burgoyne or someone like that goes there.
they have an alright draft. Pick 13 is their major top draft pick. That's not that bad. But again, losing Houston is going to hurt them.
What do you think of bringing in Lukosius? Obviously,
That helped them.
obviously Charlie Dixon retired.
Yeah.
So now that he's there, maybe who else do they have? They have Ollie Lord, don't they? They could have Lukosius and Lord as their two forwards.
They are a big choker. They always choke.
Yes.
Port Adelaide, one of the biggest chokers.
We can all agree on that, yeah. Especially in the finals.
Yeah.
It used to be Geelong who used to fumble those
They could have
finals.
played a grand final a few years ago.
They could have done it this year.
They lost the prelim by 4 points.
Against Richmond.
That's a grand final they could have gone. And Geelong weren't
I
dominating.
think Brisbane's choke that year was slightly bigger, given it was a Queensland grand final waiting for them.
Yeah.
Like, they would have won that.
But Brisbane are chokers as well. I mean, two biggest chokers in the league. For me, about a B, kind of average.
Yeah, B.
Move on. Richmond, a lot of
Your boys, the Richmond Tigers.
a lot of outs.
To say the
All
least.
the ins are going to be through the draft, and they've got a lot to talk about in the draft. Out Dan Rioli, Shea Bolton, Jack Graham, Liam Baker.
And I'm just reading this now. So,
players.
pick 1, pick 10, pick 11, pick 20, pick 23, and pick 24, all belonging to the Tigers. They have to nail this draft.
I think 18 as well or something.
I think this draft is the most important for Richmond. I've said this draft's important for a lot of clubs, but it is of paramount importance for Richmond.
Yeah.
They must get this right.
But the thing is, it's going to come down to the scouts. They know probably who they're going to pick number 1.
Jagger Smith.
But yeah, probably. But I reckon they need a forward. He'll probably go at 6. I think it's Langford.
Yeah, Harvey Langford, I think, or whatever his name is.
He might go. They need a forward. I mean, Tom Lynch is a big out. But the recruiting is going to come down to pick 23, pick 24, pick 19. You got to pick the right players.
Yeah.
'Cause these players, amazing players can come from low picks. And
Yeah, I know.
if they get this right, they can
Like,
bounce back.
you look at Massimo D'Ambrosio. He became, almost an All-Australian player this year, and he was taken mid-season draft.
Was Likey pick 60 or something?
Yeah, he was a late pick.
Yeah, so big pick. For
We've
them,
found a
big
lot
draft.
of... I feel like recently we've found a lot of sort of diamond in the rough recruits.
Yeah.
I feel like the great players have come from 10th, pick 10 and onwards almost.
Yeah, I guess
Like,
the ones that come high have a lot of pressure.
Yeah, they have all the pressure on them.
Yeah.
Especially a lot of those expansion picks, like when Gold Coast and GWS get started. So,
for Richmond, it's probably a B because they're losing so much. You can't really tell until it's halfway through the season. Or at the end of the season, because you need to see if these young players are good enough.
I'm probably being a bit generous with my marking,
Yeah.
but I think I'm going to give them an A-.
Yeah, it's a
As long as they nail it,
if they nail the draft, it's an A.
even if they nail the draft, they could get an A+.
Yeah, easy. But they've got to nail the draft, and they're not good at recruiting, so it's going to hurt.
Yeah.
Now
Now the Saints. So they brought in Jack McRae.
Yeah, having 50 disposals in some games in the VFL, so he's going
Jack McRae, I would say he would have to be one of the most underrated players of the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't even noticed how underrated he is, but he's a 3-time All-Australian.
Yeah.
I did not even notice.
Playing
And they
VFL.
need a big-bodied midfielder as well.
Yeah.
So they had Steele. He's probably their only one. Now that he's got some support. So, like, I look at the Bulldogs midfield, for example, which was McRae's old club. Like, Adam Treloar, he can just do his own thing. He doesn't have to worry about getting the opposition's best tagger because he knows that they're just going to go for Bontempelli.
Yeah.
And that's how all the good midfields work. Like, for example, in Collingwood, Steele side bottom, Scott Pendlebury. They don't have to worry about getting the opposition's best tagger because they know they're going to go to Dacos.
Yeah.
So, that's a big in for them.
St Kilda, they always start well, and we're saying, oh, they might play finals.
This could be the year.
Yeah, it's
their second flag,
it's
their
never,
fairy tale flag.
They always fool you, so they might start off well. But
Not their fans. Never their fans.
I don't think that they're playing finals.
Their fans don't get sucked in.
Yeah.
I think they need to get rid of Ross Lyon. I think that's probably their main thing. They can't find a good coach.
Yeah.
They've had the lists. They've had all the talented lists in the world, but they've never had their general coach, I guess, who's been good enough to get them over the line.
They're average every year.
Yeah, they're just
kind of in the
middle of the road, pretty much. They're in a similar boat to Essendon and the Bulldogs, I feel, where they're always just the Marvel dwellers, if you will.
Yeah, Adelaide have kind of been in there a bit recently.
I suppose so.
And then I would say, C, it's pretty average for them.
I'd say C.
They've got pick 7 and 8.
They can cover for Josh Battle, which
7 and 8 in the draft is big picks.
And they'll use those on academy. They'll use some of their picks on academy players like Adrian Cole and whatnot.
Really good players with that. So actually, I'm going to say a B or
I reckon.
B+.
I think a B minus.
With 7
probably
and 8,
suits them.
if they nail 7 and 8, they can get 2.
They lost Josh Battle, but the big thing about that is they can cover for that loss. They've got they've got a lot of depth in the back line.
I think that the teams have got to look at Backman in this draft. I know everyone talks about midfielders.
Defenders are risky though.
Yeah, they win you games. They win you premierships.
That's true, but they're so hard to find.
Everyone's going to go for midfielders again, but
people always go for ready-made with defenders, and that's when it pays off. Yeah. But it's never spectacular. But these sort of highly touted defenders, something often goes wrong. Like I look at Zach Reid, for example, at Essendon. The Bombers had about 3 top 10 picks, I think, in 1 year. He was taken with one of those, and literally every Essendon supporter and their parrot was hyping him up. Like, they were saying, this guy's going to be our new general, and he's just not been able to get on the park. He hasn't been able to get a break. They also take a long time to develop. It all often takes to like their 6th year for them to really take off. So, I reckon a C. C for the Saints.
Sydney won, to be honest. I mean...
With the year they had, they should have.
Yeah.
They were flaky, though.
They felt like the premiers the whole season, but...
They felt a bit flaky, though, at times.
Their forward line did not play well in the grand final.
Their forward line isn't going to be exactly fixed either, with their top goal scorer from the grand final out now.
Yeah.
And also losing Constanti, who I feel is, very unlucky not to be playing AFL footy at the moment. I feel like he can really burst into that North Melbourne team and become a good player.
I feel like their midfielders were playing so well in the middle of the season, everyone said it was done. Like, they were premiers done over. And they turned off. They had Heaney that was out for a week that affected them. Their midfielder died down, and their forward line and back line weren't good enough to back it up, and they lost 5 in a row. So, look, pick, 19 and 22. They've got to get forwards in that. They're midfielders. They don't need midfielders.
I don't think they need key forwards either. I think they've got Papley, who's a really good small forward, and then who else do they have in that small forward bracket?
They've got so many good young players. I think they target Backman again, I reckon.
I don't really know if they need one, though. I know McCartan's always injured, but I think they're pretty solid down there.
The thing is, they don't need a midfielder. There's no way no need a midfielder.
They've got one of the best. Probably the best midfield in the league.
They do. If their forward line was as good as the midfield,
they're keeping Taylor Adams out of the team. That's how good this midfield is.
Yeah. Well, Sydney, I think they'll be good again next year, but they've got to sort
They're not going to be a grand finalist again, though.
They've got to sort out
their big games. They do not play well in the big games.
Their forward line and their back line, they've got to focus, because their midfield is amazing, but, they've got to have a decent forward line as well. And if they're forward, will they kick 1 goal or something, 2 goals from forwards in the grand final?
Well, Will Hayward kicked 1, Parker kicked 3.
Yeah,
in a mini Norm Smith performance.
Yeah. But, from key forwards, it's just terrible.
Yeah.
I'd say a C or
I think a D.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm going to be really, really harsh here, and I'm going to give them an F. The first F of the video. Because they lost Luke Parker, who's arguably their spiritual leader.
Yeah, 3 goals going from.
Probably one of their most experienced players as well. Constanti, who would have been, I think, a very solid young player for them. And to top it all off, they didn't even bring anyone good in. No, not even good. They didn't bring anyone in. Like, they should have been looking for a missing piece. Like, a player who can really help them go the next step forward next year. And they didn't find it. They didn't even look for it, really. So, it has to be an F for Sydney for me.
That's fair.
They seriously need to work out their big games. Longmire under pressure for next year. Move on.
West Coast.
Yep.
Well, Baker, Owies, Graham, they've lost Barras and Darling, but it's a win in the trade for me.
Yeah.
And with their draft, they picked 12 as well, which is decent. This is not bad for them,
I actually don't think they're a waffle team anymore.
Yeah.
I think them and North are going to be big improvers next year. I think Richmond will be... I think they're just about the wooden spoon team, aren't they?
No.
Richmond will be wooden spoon. Come on.
If Tom Lynch comes back in, you know.
No.
Yeah.
What's he going to do? Without a midfield, what's he going to do? Because he doesn't have a midfield, mate.
Their midfield's fine.
No. Without Taranto, it's nothing. And he's always injured. So's Hopper.
Yeah, if Richmond didn't have as many injuries last year, they wouldn't have finished last. But yeah,
That would have been pretty close, though.
Graham, decent. Baker.
They do get bitched in the midfield a little bit, pardon my language. So Graham's good, just brings in a big body. Baker helps bring some composure to the back line. That's, let's face it, often under pressure.
They won't miss Darling because Waterman and Allen have kind of filled the Kennedy-Darling
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Waterman's one of the most underrated players in the league.
He's an All-Australian. I'd say, isn't Allen their captain?
Yeah.
I think he was pretty disappointing last year. I'd like to see more from him.
Yeah, well, I think he's more helping Waterman, letting him have... And he was injured as well.
Yeah, that's true. Owies, that's arguably another 20 to 30 goals for them next year.
Possibly.
Helps them with their depth as well. One thing with West Coast is that they've really struggled with depth because of all their insane injuries. And Owies, like, he'll push some good players out of the team. Like Liam Ryan, for example, probably won't be able to catch a game.
No, he'll play. Liam Ryan does.
His fitness is the big thing for me. Like, he hasn't been fit. Like, he just looked not even chubby, but he just looked...
Well, you'd have him at
I guess
Essendon.
what?
Did you have him at Essendon?
Probably, maybe. But I just don't think he'd be able to get a game in the best team. I think he's probably just a depth player as it stands for him. Which is unfortunate for him because at his best he's so good. And without Barras, you know... Who else do they have down back? Jake Rotham or some shit? Like, what are they going to do?
Yeah. Look, West Coast, I want to say a B. Navy, B+.
B+, I'd say. Yeah.
Alright, Western Bulldogs, they have quite a big out. That's going to hurt.
3 big outs.
And Kennedy does not fill the shoes of, I don't think, any of those 3 players by themselves.
No, I think he can replace McRae. Him and McRae are very similar.
Maybe McRae, but that's it. I mean, Bailey Smith, Caleb Daniel, McRae. It's 3. They've had them for a long time.
Yeah, they're stalwarts of the club if you really think about it.
They're relevant players and they're big players in their club, which is going to hurt. And in the draft, they picked 17, and that's about it in the top type picks. So,
all of those players have played in grand finals. They've played in all of their big games. And they've lost them.
This is not a good... For me, this is not a good draft.
I'm questioning Beveridge right now, I think.
I might say F.
I honestly think Beveridge is under... He'd probably be... There's a lot of under-pressure coaches next year, but Luke Beveridge is pretty close to being the most. Yeah. Like, hey, he got them a premiership, I'll give him that, but surely there's a stage where I guess the premiership... I'm going to call it the premiership immunity, where it just prevents you from getting sacked, I guess, wears off, you know?
Yeah.
Because it's been almost a decade now since they were there, and they have done nothing since. They've never made top 4 under him, which is an interesting stat. So I think his time is just about up. Time for a new era. Almost a rebuild of sorts.
I think this is a big prediction. I think we might see them fall down the bottom next year.
Yeah, I know.
It's not going to help.
Yeah.
I mean, McRae and Smith weren't playing most games last year.
They should have been.
Yeah.
If Smith wasn't injured, he would have been playing, but McRae should have been getting picked up.
Yeah, McRae was getting
pretty stiff.
Oh yeah, Daniel's another one that's bugging out. Look, I don't
understand why they weren't playing him at the start of the year.
Yeah, I don't think that the Bulldogs are going finals.
Ridiculous. I don't either.
I can't see it happening.
I also think it'll be Beveridge as last year.
Yeah.
Like, that'd be like his 10th or 11th year there. Has never made top 4, as I said.
So I'm gonna say close to an F.
I'd say D-.
Yeah, I'd say the same one.
You know, maybe D+, just because they brought in Kennedy. That's the saving grace in this period.
Yeah. Alright, that's it for the draft.
So, who do you think are the winners of this trade period?
Well, it's hard to say right now.
Hindsight's a big thing, I'm aware, but currently in the here and now, who do you think did well, just looking off this roster?
Look, you can't tell about Richmond yet because they've got to do their draft well. We'll know next year. I reckon that West Coast might be big winners, and North might have a bit of an up. Unusual. They might go up the ladder a little bit. But
will it bring their attendances up, though? That's the question.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Memberships?
Probably not.
They claim they have 50,000 members, but not sure who's working the statistics there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they're junior members that don't pay much and don't go to the games.
Yeah, probably.
I think Gold Coast will be interesting as well. I think that West Coast, Gold Coast and North Melbourne, kind of down the bottom type teams lately, they're going to be interesting. Richmond, all the bottom teams in the ladder have been having big drafts. I reckon that they'll all be interesting.
I don't think they're the big winners, but I honestly think Fremantle have found their missing piece.
I think Fremantle overall, I would say the bigger improvers next year. They'd have to be.
That's the missing piece.
Yeah.
They needed Bolton.
Yeah.
And they got him. So you'd be thinking they're charging up the ladder next year.
Fremantle are probably close to one of my favourites next year. I mean, they probably won't do it next year.
I'm keen to watch them next year.
Yeah, they'd have to have a few years up there before they can really start talking grand final, but their team's looking so good.
I think the winner of this period, though,
yeah,
pains me to say this, but I'd have to say Hawthorn.
Why?
Anyone knows me knows that I cannot stand Hawthorn, but what they have done here, and what they've done last year as well, has been so darn impressive. Like, to not lose anyone as well.
Yeah.
Like, bringing in Battle and Barras, there are going to be some really, really, really solid players who'd be getting games anywhere else who won't be in the best team.
Yeah, that's big.
Like Sam Frost, for an example. He's probably going to fall out of the team.
Losing player hurts teams, and people don't realise how much losing players, because there's personalities around the club.
A lot of people, I'd say, want to move Sicily into the forward line, which I think is a bit silly.
He does play well there, though. I reckon only when
so.
he wants to. He seems to do it at good times.
He's almost like an on-field coach, if you will.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like him, I'm going to say Merritt, Bontempelli, and Gawn, they're almost like coaches on the field.
Yeah.
Like, the way they sort of, I guess, what's the word? Like, I guess they're imperial, in a sense. Like, they really help their team.
Spirit.
Yeah. They help motivate their teams. They not only lead with their performance, like, giving it a good speech is all well and good. Like, just about any captain can do that. Like, you see Isaac Heaney, he gave his speech. He's not the captain, I know, but he sort of gave his speech and didn't back it up. But actually backing it up with your performance is the other thing, and they seem to do that. And I feel like Sicily's one of those players. And they also, another thing is, they kind of just do what they want. Like, if Bontempelli or Merritt or whoever's getting tagged, they'll just move themselves into the forward line and they'll pop up with a goal. And I feel like Sicily will do the same thing. If the team's doing like a Billy Frampton on him and they're sort of tagging him out of the game, I feel like he'll move himself into the forward line and he'll find a way to help his team that way. Yeah. Give them like another 1 or 2 goals.
I think we should wrap this up.
Yeah. So, thank you everyone for watching. Listening, watching, whatever you're doing. We're really, really looking forward to, continuing this podcast. It's been an absolute blast.
And just thank you, everyone.